You know, people who don't drink Wilkins coffee just blow up sometimes.
Oh, that's a lot of...
See what I mean?
There is truth in advertising, yes I swear. Got new Nikes on my feet and Vidal Sassoon in my hair. I can sure use a Budweiser Fruit of the Loom underwear. There is truth in advertising, I swear. Why would they lie to me when they love what they sell? Plus we all know that the liars have a special fire in hell. On the television, radio, and in the magazines, the advertising gods perpetuate the American dream. Advertising, let it be, let it be. Now I know that I don't need to buy everything to try to sell me, but so easily divided is a fool and his money. There is truth in advertising, let it be. Why would they lie to me when they love what they sell? Plus we all know that the liars got a special fire in hell. On the television, radio, and in the magazines, the advertising gods perpetuate the American dream.
Coffee commercials are notoriously odd. Whether they're promoted by traveling immigrants with a donkey or a little jingle about the best part of waking up, coffee ads are universally recognized as being some of the weirdest. In fact, coffee is one of those things you'd think wouldn't need to be advertised at all at this point, considering how normalized drinking it is. But it does, and it is. And perhaps one of the most bizarre ad campaigns ever run for coffee was for Wilkins. In 1957, puppet pioneer and creative visionary Jim Henson was approached by a Washington, D.C. company to produce a series of commercials for Wilkins coffee. Wilkins was a coffee brand owned by General Foods and a sister brand to Maxwell House. Since 1998, it's been marketed as a budget brand coffee, which is not necessarily an appealing combination of words. Henson, always biting for a new challenge, gladly took the opportunity, and thus Wilkins and Wontkins were born. Wilkins and Wontkins were named to be polar opposites. Wilkins was named because he will drink the coffee, and Wontkins because he won't drink the coffee. The local stations had only 10 seconds for station identification, so the ads had to be lightning fast. 8 seconds for the pitch and a 2-second shot of the product. As a result, these ads never deviated from the format, and the setup is executed the same every single time. The commercials are also, and this is why people remember them so well, extremely violent. In a surprising twist for Henson, the ads, when resurfacing online in the last decade, were noted for their extremely gruesome content, in which Wilkins often directly physically attacks Wontkins in a variety of manners, even on rare occasions with a handgun. Though these ads became primarily popular amongst children, the violence was never toned down because, as most people know, kids like violence. Kids are awful little creatures. In fact, the ads were so popular amongst children that in the Evening Sun newspaper from November 25, 1958, a mere year after the ads began circulation, an advertisement was placed to order your very own Wilkins hand puppets, which are stated as being fun for kids. The ads were shot between 1957 and 1961, in which a staggering 179 commercials for Wilkins coffee, among other Wilkins products, were produced. But it wasn't so much that the coffee became famous, but more so the characters. In fact, these days, Wilkins is long since forgotten, the market being taken over by names like Folgers, or in your worst case scenarios, Starbucks. But perhaps, as a result of being less popular, Wilkins attempted in October of 1990 to reboot the characters without the Henson Company's approval, and as a result, they were promptly sued by Jim Henson Productions. But the fact that a reboot was even attempted says all it needs to say, doesn't it? These were characters that the company themselves loved and were willing to use again, even illegally. And while rebuilt versions of Wilkins and Wontkins are currently on display in the touring exhibit of Jim Henson's Fantastic World, and the original puppet for Wilkins has been donated to the Smithsonian, they very likely would have been forgotten, if not for the very normalized act of internet virality. In 2012, the oldest piece we can find about this, the ads suddenly took on a new life of their own when they were uploaded to YouTube and quickly gained views after an article from Open Culture was published on the subject. The commercials were, for a long time, actually considered lost media. In fact, according to the Lost Media Wiki, out of the 179 ads that were filmed, only 135 have been released online, which is still a staggering amount if we're being honest, especially for something from so long ago. Also of note is how on June 26, 2020, a YouTuber named KermyClown uploaded a large collection of the commercials, including all of the ads for other brands that the characters promoted, such as Tasty Bread and Dugan's Bread. There's even the possibility that Wilkins himself is merely a prototype for Kermit. Seeing as both were performed by Henson, and the fact that Wilkins almost resembles Kermit in a myriad of ways, it isn't such a stretch to consider the possibility that when making Kermit, Henson used Wilkins as a model. Wilkins and Wontkins, though, were enormously popular, and as such, a number of merchandise were produced. A coffee tin with them on it, promotional puppets, cloth hand puppets, and more. As we said, these ads were extremely popular among children, and children's interest and enthusiasm often means advertising dollars. Considering the year, 1957, it's even arguable that Wilkins and Wontkins were some of the very first extremely popular advertising mascots. But what made them famous was their non-exclusivity. The contract Henson had was such that he could produce any number of ads for any number of companies with the same characters. And this is what likely led to their saturation of pop culture at the time. Much like our mascot last week, Ernest, Wilkins and Wontkins weren't contractually bound to only promote Wilkins coffee, despite it being in their names. And they went on to promote a bevy of other companies. When you've got characters doing multi-company promotions, it means more screen time, and thus it's more likely that they'll become widely recognized. Did their star ever shine as brightly as other mascots? No. But not because they didn't deserve it, or weren't as great. It's because by the time of the 80s and 90s, we treated mascots as if they were as famous as movie stars. In 1957, despite their popularity, that sort of thing just didn't happen. In fact, their level of fame at all is rather impressive given when they were produced. It's easy to argue that Wilkins and Wontkins set the precedent for what a mascot could really do, or how famous they could really be. Leave it to Jim Henson to accidentally create the modern concept of an advertising mascot. So if you're ever in the mood for a nice cup of coffee to help you start your day, may we suggest Wilkins. In fact, may we suggest you wear a bulletproof vest while drinking anything other than Wilkins, because if not, Wilkins himself might show up and fucking kill you.